Hello everybody, welcome back. Today, as you can see, I'm doing something a little bit different. Fiendsmith not so different, but Neo Space Connector is going to be a feature in this deck profile. This is going to be a Bystial Fiendsmith kind of update, just with a little bit of a twist. You may have seen the top 32 list from the YCS Mexico City, where someone was playing Cash Tier Fiendsmith with the Neo Space Connector engine. So I'll explain what that is. It hasn't seen any play in a long while, but basically the engine is 3 Neo Space Connector with 1 Neo-Spatian Aqua Dolphin. And essentially, Neo Space Connector says on normal summon you can special summon a Neo-Spatian monster from your hand or deck. And then the one you're summoning for is Neo-Spatian Aqua Dolphin. This card has the effect to discard a card, look at your opponent's hand, and then choose a monster. If you choose a monster with attack greater than or equal to the attack of the chosen card, destroy the chosen card, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent, otherwise take 500 damage. So what this does is allows you to snipe a hand trap out of your opponent's hand. If we're all playing lots and lots of hand traps, your opponent has to make a decision whether they're going to hand trap the Neo Space Connector or not. Because basically if they hand trap the Neo Space Connector, then it's already kind of done its job. It's baited out a hand trap. In the Cash Tier version, obviously you'd summon a Cash Tier first and then normal summon Neo Space Connector, because if they hand trap the connector, they've got to deal with the Cash Tier effect. So if it's something like Cash Tier Unicorn, which you can, obviously summon a unicorn, then normal Neo Space Connector, your opponent is going to be already in just a really difficult position where they have to think about what they're going to do in response to the Neo Space Connector. Because if they hand trap it, then obviously it's baited a hand trap, they're down a card, unicorn's going to rip a key piece out of the extra deck, and then you just link into Moon and go off from there. If they let it go, then they're going to get hand ripped anyway, and so whatever they might have had to respond to Neo Space Connector gets ripped anyway. But it's really strong. Obviously it's a normal summon engine. If it gets, it's obviously weak to a hand trap, but it's also kind of done its job at that point. Like, you play lots of extenders. Now I'm not playing the Cash Tier monsters in the main deck. I'm side decking the Cash Tier Unicorn, only because I just, obviously Cash Tier Unicorn we know is a crazy card in the format, but my only kind of issue, is the reason why I played Bystial Fiendsmith at most recent regionals as well, is that just the Cash Tier cards, they just kind of get stuck in your hand. And Unicorn in particular, going second is just not ideal. This deck going second has a pretty decent shot. I mean, you're playing so many hand traps. So basically I've just taken out 4 hand traps for the Neo Space Connector line. Otherwise it's just Bystial Fiendsmith at its core. And you can easily just side this out. This can be just sided out for something. But then, like, going first, when you side in the Cash Tier Unicorn, like, you've got the unicorns, you've got the connectors, you've got the Fiendsmith, the Bystials. It's crazy. So the other effective Neo Space Connector is you can tribute it to target a Neo Spatial monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. This is not once per turn, so there is actually a world where you can do this. I'll kind of show how it works, but you can rip 2 with Aqua Dolphin. It does discard cards from your hand, so it is costly on your hand advantage as well. But I think if you're resolving Connector, you do just kind of win. And later on in combos, when you are resolving for a second time, usually you've got a bigger body on the field, like a Necroquip Princess or a Desiree, whatever it might be, and you can actually go and rip meaningful engine, not just 0 attack hand traps or whatever. So this engine's crazy. Super keen to kind of get into locals and kind of test this out. Then Fiendsmiths, playing Engraver at 3, playing Lacrima at 2. So obviously I was playing Lacrima at 3 before, but this is kind of going with like 5 normal summons. Now this technically is a lot more than 5, because there's 4, there's 2, that's 6. I mean, because you can obviously normal summon the Aqua Dolphin, and then the Lurry itself also kind of makes a normal summon. So we're playing a lot more than normal. I just don't want to play 1 Lacrima. I don't know, if I'm like siding out these, I don't know. I felt bad playing 1 Lacrima, so I'm going with 2. But as kind of a trade-off, and whether or not this is correct, you could definitely adjust this. I've gone for 3-tracked. You could definitely cut 1. You could even like opt to play Sanct, but we're playing Bystial, so maybe it's not the best option. But there is room for redundancy here with the tracks and the engravers. But you now have a discard engine in the Aqua Dolphin as well if you get to it. So it's just more access. This access to Fiendsmith. This obviously gets you to Fiendsmith. Like, if you resolve Connector and Dolphin, you just link these into Moon afterwards, and like you just off to the races because you know what your opponent has as well in their hand. Last card, of course, is the Fiendsmith in Paradise for the Fiendsmith engine. Then for the Bystials, nothing too crazy. It's just Libellion and Regained. And yeah, obviously we're playing 2 Baldrake, 1 Druis, and 1 Magnamut. Yep, nothing much to say here. I think the Bystials are, obviously in a pretty decent spot in the next format. Like against Malice, yeah, no, they're not the greatest. You can just kind of get into those awkward Bystial balls with your opponent, but not very effective. Obviously, hitting Mitsurugi with Bystials is really nice. Hitting Fiendsmith cards with Bystials is nice. So Bystials are still pretty decent against, if we're expecting the format to be, Malice, Mitsurugi something, and Fiendsmith somethings, then like the Bystials obviously are good against 2 out of those 3. And they don't do nothing against Malice. I mean, they're at the worst case, they're just extenders. Then for the other engine, I don't know what to play, to be honest. This is just Nib, Fua, Ash, Troll. These are just like good cards. You can play whatever you like here. I'm opting for Talons, Crossout, and Callby. You can fit all 3 in. You could just play 3 other non-engine cards, and then Imperm. You just play whatever. This is just, it's 15 hand traps plus the 4 other Bystials and these 3. That's like 20 something, which is it's a good number. That's a great number, really. Not as many decks can fit that many. Extra deck, we've got plenty of space. The Neo space stuff doesn't really take up extra deck space at all. So the double Requiem, 1 sequence, 1 Agnum Day. And then I've opted to kind of use the flex spots now. Typically you'd see in the past the flex spots be used on like rank 6s. I've opted to kind of just go more for the link package because the Neo space cards are also pretty good with the, like they're obviously just link bodies, like bodies for linking with. So I'm going for Goddess. Obviously SP is always usually in this list. IP, so like IP into SP or to Goddess. If you've got Fiendsmith cards and Neo Space cards, then you can make an IP on your end board for no reason. Moon for Close Heaven. And one thing actually, and I didn't actually really explain it very well, I realise now, but Almirage is a really key kind of card in this deck, and I'll show you why. So in a hypothetical scenario where we've got a Neo Space Connector and a Bystial, for example, and we normal summon the Neo Space, and our opponent does hand trap it because, maybe they're just whatever they've got in hand is too valuable. We can link off the Neo Space Connector for Salamangreat Almirage, and then we can banish the Neo Space Connector for a Bystial, and this is going to get us into Moon anyway. So it has kind of baited a hand trap. It's traded kind of that way as well, which is not bad, and then we can go into a Moon anyway. So that's what you kind of can do with the Bystials. The other kind of really cool thing about Connector, it's a level 4 light. So again, similar to Lacrima, we can just make Chaos Angel light and dark with those as well. But yeah, Almirage is an important kind of piece in the extra deck. But we've definitely gone for more of a link heavy because we can definitely put more bodies on the field with this variation as well. And then nothing too crazy. Double Desiree, like you don't necessarily need to play Double Desiree. Necro Equip, Caesar, Typhon, Chaos Angel. This is all just kind of standard stuff, nothing too crazy. It's just it's a Fiendsmith control variation, of course. I wanted to set a side deck just because I think Unicorn in the side deck is pretty cool, but otherwise fairly generic stuff. Perulia, Lancia, Unicorn with Birth. I mean, do you need to play 3 Unicorn? Maybe not. You could play 2 and a Birth. It's up to you, but it's just a going first kind of side. And then we've got Thrust into Dust. Now, I don't know if these necessarily are correct. Sanctum into DDG as well. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I haven't had copious amounts of testing, but this is kind of just what I'm starting with for this deck because I'm trying to one thing that is kind of the issue with the Fiendsmith Bystial deck is like the going first is just the Fiendsmiths because you're not really incentivized to use your Bystials going first unless you have to, because you don't want to be Bystialing away your own like Fiendsmith cards. Neo Space just gives you something that you can Bystial away. If you need to get an extender at some point, you can Bystial away the connector. That's nice. But this just makes your going first stronger. So it's baiting hand traps that don't affect your Fiendsmith cards, because if they're ashing connector, then they're not ashing Requiem later on, which is good. Yeah, it just gives your opponent other things to hit, and obviously if the connector resolves, then you're just in such a great position. The hand knowledge is great, ripping the cards out of your hand. The potential rip 2 is also just as nice. But I'll show a combo now involving Connector and Engraver, just a hypothetical, and then I'll do some testing. All right, so this is going to be a combo involving Engraver and Connector. It's a pretty cool combo. It has some things that you would have seen before in other like Fiendsmith variations, but obviously just being able to Connector rip cards out of the hand is also just always a good thing. We'll just fill our hand up because we're going to be discarding some cards, so we'll just put some hand traps here as well. But we're going to start with Neo Space Connector. Like normally in situations like this, you might go with Engraver first. but we're going to go for a connector, and obviously we're going to assume that it resolves in this case, but you know, this might bait a hand trap from our opponent, in which case our extender comes in nicely to get into the Fiendsmith cards as well. But here's Neospatial Aqua Dolphin. We're going to use its effect. Let's say our opponent has Droll in hand. We're discarding Imperm. We get to look at their hand. We're hitting Droll. We haven't played into Droll yet. We've still got Engraver just chilling over here, but we've hit the Droll out of the hand, and we know everything else in our opponent's hand. So we know kind of what they're playing. We know potentially what interruptions we need to kind of build. We're not going to, you know, it would, for the case of this test hand, we're just going to say that playing whatever, doesn't really matter, but obviously we're free to go ahead and use Engraver. So with Engraver, obviously we're getting tracked. We'll use tracked, add Lurry, discard Lurry, and the Lurry will summon to the field. And then we will take the Aqua Dolphin and no, that's not true. We'll take the Lurry, do this first. We're going to make Requiem, and then use the Requiem into Lacrima. Like I said, so we know our opponent's hand. Obviously, we wouldn't play too hard into other hand traps if we know what our opponent has, but we're just saying the Droll was the only thing in their hand, so we're just going to go ahead with this combo. Summon that Lacrima, then we're going to take the Aqua Dolphin and the Lacrima, and we're going to link it off for Sequence. This is my favorite Fiendsmith combo. It's just Engraver and any normal summon, but in this case we just happen to have a connector that's ripping cards out of our opponent's hand, which is lovely. But we're going to go for Sequence now. We're going to put back an Engraver, the Lurry, and the Requiem. Keep Lacrima and the Engraver. It's not really going to matter, they're going to disappear later too. But we'll put these ones back. We keep the Lacrima just in case anything happens, and the Engraver obviously we haven't used yet, so we can put that away. Keep that in the graveyard. Summon out Desiree, take Sequence and Desiree. Now, to note, at any point now, we can go for Connector, Tribute out for Dolphin, and use Dolphin to rip a second card, costing us another Imperm. Now, if Imperm was a monster hand trap, and actually really read Necroquip really quickly. Yeah, so yeah, if the Imperm was a monster hand trap, this is obviously what we need to trigger Necroquip. If our opponent has obviously a really big monster that we want to rip out of hand, then we do it now at Desiree, because we can just discard Ash, and then we can discard Ash or Imperm, whatever, just discard a card to take out a really big monster. But otherwise, what we can do is we can still just wait. We don't need to do this just yet. But we can take Sequence and Desiree, because if we have a monster, we can get the Necroquip draw. That's the only reason why I'm doing it this way. They're going to make Agnum Day. Agnum Day is going to put itself in the spell trap zone and bring back the Desiree, and this is going to make Necroquip. I'm sure you've seen this before. Like I said, it's my favorite Fiendsmith combo. Necroquip, and then we can go Connector. Bring back Aqua Dolphin. We can Aqua Dolphin, discard Ash, for example, rip a second card out of our opponent's hand. We get a free draw into something, so these are obviously like the 2 cards in hand. And then we can go ahead and use Engraver. Putting back Sequence, summoning itself out, and then we can overlay these for Caesar. And then we're chilling there. We've obviously got 2 cards in hand because we drew one off the Necroquip. So it does kind of cost us the hand advantage, but we know what our opponent has. We've taken 2 cards out of their hand. They're playing with 4 cards now going into their turn. We know everything they have, so obviously if we were opting to play other like Xyz monsters, like if we thought that Caesar wasn't the right play, we could play Lars. You could put Lars into your extra deck and play that. But yeah, it's just another option. But otherwise, we've ripped 2 cards out of our opponent's hand. We have the Lacrima, so on our opponent's turn, we can obviously use the Lacrima, summon back the Agnum Day, which can put itself into the spell trap zone and summon out Desiree. It's just going to beat any breaker that our opponent might have as well, with our, obviously, 2 cards left in hand. So that's kind of just a combo you can do. The deck is really at its core just Fiendsmith Bystial, just with a different normal summon engine, just to kind of add a little bit more strength going first, because I find that the deck that's where it kind of does struggle, is that it's very easy to break the board going first, but just gives you something extra to kind of do and bait hand traps out going first. Also knows, if your opponent has Bystials, you can hit them out potentially, or at least just know they're there. But now we'll do just a few test hands just to kind of show consistency and go from there. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a big shuffle and just draw 5 cards each time off the top. We're not going to play anything out because it's just Fiendsmith combo, nothing too exciting to really play out. But we're just looking for combinations of engine, non-engine. For a Droll, obviously, conflict is what it is. Rebellion and Boldrig. So Droll and a Bystial, got Fua and a Bystial. We just have to decide what our opponent, like based on what we see our opponent doing before we kind of commit to something. But engine, non-engine, happy days. Second one, we've got Imperm, Engraver, Tract, Crossout. So Crossout's good for protection. Obviously, this is just Fiendsmith cards, so we can get the Necro Equip draw and start with Tract. Means we're not playing into Droll either. Obviously, we don't really care because of Crossout. We've got Ash, Imperm, Ash, Neospatian, Aqua Dolphin, and Ash. Okay, we've got the trifecta of Ash Blossom. This hand's obviously not good, but you know that's going to happen. Paradise, Tract, Lacrima, Talents, and Droll. So Droll's the only non-engine, so depending on what we're playing against, this might be good or bad. Talents is obviously, it's a good card that helps us going first. Drawing Paradise is always going to be unfortunate, but it's got to happen sometimes. Nib, Connector, Boldrig, Rebellion. So this is fine going first, obviously. We've got Connector, we can pitch a Connector if we get to Dolphin. We've got the Bystials if we do get hand trapped on Connector as well. So we've got Fiendsmith combo, we can Rebellion over the Necro Equip to draw a card as well. So this is fine. Going second, Nib being, we've got Nib and Bystial. So again, that can be good, it can be bad. Depends on just the matchup, I guess. Magnemite, Nib, Engraver, Rebellion, and Fua. So it's probably just like, this is a crazy hand. I got non-engine, like 3, Fua, Nib, Bystial, Engraver, Rebellion for engine. This is great. Fua, Nib, Lacrima, Lurry, and Regained. So Nib and Fua are pretty good for an engine. Conflicting normal summons and Lacrima and Lurry is always going to be unfortunate. Regain is just kind of a dead card, but you know it is what it is. Then we've got Druis, Neospace Connector, Called by the Grave, Droll and Lockbird, and Fiendsmith Tract. So Droll and Bystial going second is okay. Called by is really good if we were going first. We've got Neospace plus Bystial, which is good. Tract obviously for Fiendsmith cards. And that's, I should say that obviously the deck is a clean 40. That was a perfect 40 cards. But you can see like every hand there was, apart from this one over here, every hand was basically, you know, engine and non-engine each one. Like you're at least getting the chance to play the game. And that's why I really like the Bystial control deck. Just like you've got plenty of hand traps to kind of like put your opponent on these like awkward half boards or whatever it is, and then like you get to play with the Fiendsmith cards, and they just go forever. But definitely something you should try out. It's not too different from regular Fiendsmith Bystial. You know, obviously you're probably just siding this out going second anyway, the Neospace engine for your non-engine, and maybe that's where like maybe the Cashier cards aren't the best option, because in terms of like your side in terms of like generic cards, like if depending on the matchup, you're probably just taking out the 4 Neospace cards, at least for Thrust, Perulias, that's 5. These are 5 cards that you could probably just happily side into any matchup going second. And you're taking out the Neospace cards. I usually like to side out like a Rebellion. You probably side out like a Tract potentially. Like Called by and Crossout are a little bit awkward, but they're good for like stopping Bystials potentially, or Droll if you need to stop Droll. But there's definitely things that you can side out as well. Perulia being just a generic kind of catch-all, and so is Thrust. Like Thrust into Talents is good. And then you can grab Tract if you need it as like a engine. But that's going to be the deck. Definitely give this a go. Mate of mine is playing this, I believe, tonight at Locals. So I'll be pretty excited to hear how he goes. I'm not obviously there. I'm recording a video, but otherwise I will catch you in the next one.